Welcome to Jollof and Fiction, home of African literature and stories, the kind that warm your hearts like a fresh pot of jollof. Today, you're tuning into a recorded session of our online book discussion, so sit back, relax, and join the conversation.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm quite excited. Actually, I'm always excited to do every review. Welcome to tonight's session of authors and readers. And tonight we discuss Mustapha Enesi's debut collection, I Cry at the Feet of My Other Body. And we are quite honored and privileged to have him with us tonight. So, before I go ahead to do the introduction, I just like to ask if Mustapha can say hi to everyone in the house. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, all. It's a privilege to have been invited for this session. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm so glad to have you guys over. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Show him some love. That's the spirit. Thank you. All right, so thank you so much for... Sorry, give me a minute. I'm just seeing a discussion that more people want to join. Oh, note takers. Sorry, all those that joined with note takers, please be warned. All right, so before we begin, I'd just like to briefly read bio, Mustapha Enesi's bio before we continue. At any point you can't hear me, please indicate with thumbs down, and I'll try and switch network. Alright, so Mustapha Enesi is an award-winning short story writer exploring marginalized and minority voices, characterized by complex familial and communal relationships. In 2021, his short story, Kesandu, I hope I pronounced it well, won the K&L Prize for African Literature. In the same year, he also won the Awele Creative Trust Award with Safety Pins Are Good Omens. This story was later published in Harvard University's Transition magazine. Additionally, he was shortlisted for the 2021 Alpine Fellowship Writing Prize and the Arthur Flowers Prize for Flash Fiction. In 2022, one of his flash fiction pieces, Shoes, appeared in the Best Small Fiction Anthology. His short story, Doctors from Lagos, was longlisted for the 2022 Commonwealth Short Story Prize. He was the joint winner of the Young Writers Award for the 2023 Breakport Short Story Prize for his short story, One Good Thing. And in 2025, his short story, Mrs. Coca and the Headless Masquerade, was shortlisted for the Afritondo Short Story Prize. His works have been published in Harvard University's Transition magazine, Litro magazine, Isele magazine, Afritondo, Pete Smoke Journal, The Men Review, Love Grows Stronger in Death Anthology, and the Story Tree Challenge Maiden Anthology, among others. Mustapha Enesi is of Ibira descent and currently writes from Lagos, Nigeria. Wow. Well done, Mustapha. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. So, Mustapha, I learned your surname, Enesi, means admired or loved by everyone. I think we quite share that in common, because that's what my surname means, Ekbima. In Libya, admired by, I think mostly admired by mother, but then you can also translate it as admired by everyone. So I think we do have something in common. And coincidentally, I think Ibira is in Kogi State, I believe.
Yeah, that is correct.
I'm currently in Kogi State as well, so a lot happening, a lot of coincidences. Thank you very much. All right, so let's begin proper. I'll just explain how it's going to be. I'll ask a question and then you give the answer. And then if any of the members have a question to ask you as regards to that particular question I asked, they will just indicate the raise of hand and ask. I believe everyone is present for this meeting. Let me check because some members from Wheatproud wanted to attend. Let me be sure they are. Okay, at any point when they join in, I'll introduce them. I think they're about two. Timilein and Tokwe were mentioned they'll join, but they're not here yet and I can't wait for them. So we proceed. So the first thing, when I first heard the name, I think when Wheatproud sent me the title as one of the recommendations, I I cried at the feet of my other body, and they mentioned that it was a story about Nigerian women. I saw the first thought came to my, oh, the author would be a lady, but then it was Mustafa, a guy, and then like I mentioned, I was quite curious, intrigued. I want to say, oh, okay, he's a guy writing about ladies. Let's see how this goes. So that leads me to my first question. Mustafa, writing across gender can be complex, and your story deeply explores the inner lives of Nigerian women. What was that like for you as a male writer? How did you approach writing from perspectives different from your own? Could you walk us through your process? Were there resources you had to revisit often, experiences and people you had to talk to just so you could deliver the story with so much authenticity? So please just, if you'd like me to read through the question again, I will. And I believe one of the admins has already pasted the question in the chat room.
All right. Thank you so much. So I would like to say firstly that writing this book was a dream come true for me. And yes, I had to make a lot of research on what it means to capture the essence of womanhood, or generally of Nigerian women, how to capture their stories in a short story. And also, we could say that the people that I read had a lot of influence on the story that I write. Right. So I read people like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who also writes about women's struggles and women's achievements in the society. I read Jamaica Kincaid, whose stories are very temperate and tender and captures the essence and the complexities of women in the society. I read Buchi Mecheta. I read Leslie Neka Arima. So mostly the people that I read sort of have a lot of influence on the kind of story that I write. But beyond that, beyond getting inspiration from people that I read, I was also inspired mostly from my personal experience. So growing up, my mother had a lot of um, had a lot of say in what happened in my life. So what I was going to do, what I was going to achieve, how I'm going to be like in the future. So she had a lot of say in it because I was very close to my mother, and my mother was like the first feminist that I know. I know about her telling us stories about how when she was young, she learned how to ride the bicycle, and people would look at her in awe. And then she got her first car at a very young age. She's a lecturer. So like she sort of achieved so many things at a very young age, and she was like the first woman to do so in her family. And that sort of already grounded the kind of story that I wanted to write, because growing up in Okene, Kogi State, if you grew up in Kogi State on the way that I did, you're going to notice a lot of backlash against women, a lot of inequalities against women, how women are not really respected in the society, and how the patriarchy sort of takes over everything. So, learning all of these things, I said to myself that I need to write stories about women who are trying to fight against the patriarchy and that are winning in doing that. And that became a very formidable part of my writing career, because most of my stories are about women fighting the patriarchy and winning in doing that, giving themselves agencies and being successful in doing that, although not without the struggles, because I don't think anybody can fight the patriarchy and not struggle against it, because the patriarchy is like a cankerworm in society. But I have, as a writer, I told myself that I think that writers are like advocates for human struggles in society. It could be gender, it could be sexuality, whatever you think about in society. Writers have a voice, and I think as a writer that has a voice, you should be trying to write about something in the society that sort of raises questions, but not just raises questions, but also sort of shed light to things that are not being done properly. So in this way, or in this case, I wanted to write stories about women who are struggling in society, who are fighting against the patriarchy, and are trying to get themselves agency in the society. But then again, beyond my personal experience with my mother, beyond people that influence my writing, it's also research, because trying to capture the essence of womanhood, and in this case, Nigerian women in stories or in a debut story collection, was very difficult. And I had to make a lot of research to be able to like capture the essence, the complexity, and the sensitivity of women in my stories.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I think part of what you said is leading me to the next question. But before then, I'd like to ask if anyone has anything to say or to ask with regards to this question I just asked. If you do, just indicate with a raise of hand. Anybody? Okay, so believing there's none, I'll proceed. This thing you shared, Mustafa, gives credence to what I'm about to ask next, and let me quickly go through it. Give me a few seconds. Yeah. In the second story, Doctors from Lagos, the repeated reference to a proper woman feels like a commentary on the societal pressures placed on women. And I believe those that read the book, they noticed it as well. There were places where you said the proper woman should do this, the proper woman should do that. And I remember asking you, if you who defines this norm, who states what a proper woman should do? Hearing you talk about patriarchy, and then I realized that some of these norms for women were brought about by some of these men. Do you understand? So my question now is, was your intention to critique how society boxes women into certain expectations, and who gets to define those norms? Or were you inviting readers to question these standards and reflect on how they shape women's life?
So I could say I was trying to do both of the things you've mentioned, right? So I'm back in uni. I was a member of the debate club in Unilag. And one thing that our coach told us was that we have gender roles in societies, right? So, and these gender roles, they sort of box individuals into certain expectations or certain duties that they're supposed to do. Say, for example, when you give birth to a girl child, at a very young age, she's a girl. She's expected to behave a certain way, right? As she grows up into becoming a lady, the expectation changes for her, what we expect a lady to be or what to do in society. And as she grows up into becoming a woman, the roles also changes, right? So at every point of a woman's development, or rather a female's development, the roles changes, right? So when she's a girl, I mean, even the name changes. So notice how initially she was a girl child, she becomes a lady, she becomes a woman, she becomes a mother. It keeps changing and it keeps changing and it keeps changing. So the question what I was trying to do there was trying to say that women are being boxed into certain expectations, certain expectations and roles and duties that we expect them to do, right? They have to behave a certain kind of way. They have to do certain kind of things, and once they deviate from those things, they become different. We begin to see them with a certain kind of eye that we don't expect them to do or don't expect them to be in the society. And I think it's very important that we sort of engage these sort of discourses in the society, because I think that women are human beings and they are capable to do so many things that men can do, right? We don't necessarily box men or the boy child into certain expectations or certain duties that we expect from women, and I think that is unfair, right? So and I think Chimamanda that says this. For a girl child, we sort of at a very young age teach them on how to serve their men, how to serve their fathers, how to serve their husbands. And those roles are very, I don't know how to put it, but I feel like they are deleterious to the development of a woman, because we don't do the same for a man or for a boy child. So we expect that the woman is going to grow up to serve the brother, serve the father, and eventually serve the husband when they get married. And that becomes the pinnacle of their success. But for a boy child, we don't do the same things for them. It's as if we don't expect that the boy child is going to eventually get married to a woman, right? So we're not teaching our male children how to behave or how to act towards the opposite sex. And I think that is an issue in society, because what now defines their, how will I put it now? What defines their attitude towards the opposite sex that they're going to end up with in the future. What defines their attitude towards women that they will encounter in society, even if not through marriage or through familial relationships, right? That now gives men, all right, rather, most men in the society to act in a very unquote way to women in the society, and that is a problem because we necessarily are not trying to also train the boy child to be very civil people in the society. And what I was trying to do there is to question the norm that women have to be placed in a box and not men. Women have to act and behave a certain way and not men. Whereas the truth of the matter is, in as much as women are going to interact with with men in familiar relationships or in family relationships, men too are also going to interact with women in the society in the future. So if we are going to box women, we might as well also box men. But then that's not the question. The question is, should we even have a box to begin with? Should there be expectations of women to begin with? Because I think in society, what we should be trying to teach our children is to teach them on how to behave to other people, whether it is a man or a woman. I think that every single person deserves the utmost form of respect, right? It shouldn't be because they are men. It shouldn't be because they are women, right? But then on the second note, I was also trying to engage the fact that women are being held to a certain level of expectation in society that is not supposed to be, right? So women should be allowed to discover themselves. Women should be allowed to grow into different versions of themselves that they want to become, not one that is expected of them to become. And I think I say this when I say this for everyone when I say this. I think every single person, whether you're a guy or whether you're a woman, you deserve to grow into a version of yourself that you love. And you deserve to do that while discovering who you are, not what society expects you to be. And I think that is my answer to that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I got from what you shared and made me realize that society is more conscious of what a proper woman should be like, should do, with acts, that so much emphasis is not laid on what a proper man should do and should be. I think I was having a conversation one time, and there was this tweet on X where someone mentioned that um, if my wife catches me with another woman, it's not cheating. But if I catch her with another man, she's leaving my house. And as much as that might sound very funny, that's actually people's reality. That's what they hold so dear. That's what they believe in. And all you shared now just brought this to mind. How, in a way, society has been unfair, unkind to women. And I mentioned this because it struck me. I just knew that you were trying to pass a message because it was reoccurring, a proper woman. At some point, I was like, okay, we get it. Then I saw it again. I just realized this is intentional. Thank you very much, Mustapha. I don't know if anyone has anything to share or to add as regards this particular discussion now. Anybody? Nobody. So, since there is none, I'll proceed to the next question. Yes. So, in the story from which the book takes its title, I Cry at the Feet of My Other Body, there's a passage where Iya collects part of her daughter's body to create a child for another woman, Obiageli. I read this as a metaphor. Now, this is me. I read this as a metaphor for a much larger idea. The often unspoken ways women give of themselves for the joy and well-being of other women. What thoughts or reflection did you hope readers would take away from this story, especially when we come to realize that even Iya's daughter was not biologically born?
Yeah, so I think it also falls on the expectations of women on what they are expected to do, and also on what they are expected to become in society. But then it's more like a social commentary on how women, there's a beauty standard for women, and if women are not, like, if they don't follow that beauty standard, they are disrespected. They don't find grace in marriage. They are sidelined in the society, because this is a definition of beauty there's like the basic beauty standard that women have to be. They can't be too fat, they can't be too slim either. They have to have sizes in different parts of their bodies. They have to look a certain way. Some people don't like women that are dark skinned, so you see women who are bleaching themselves, right, because of that. You also notice that some women are not supposed to be too short or too tall. They just like the right amount of beauty that exists in society that we don't generally talk about, and I think that's an issue. Where I recognize that beauty is important. I don't think beauty should be based on the physical attributes of what um of what women have or what they exhibit. And I think beauty is beyond the physical attributes of what exists in society, right? And that is number one thing, right? I think it is wrong for us to box women under certain beauty standards. But then beyond that, I was also trying to also make a commentary on what how did you say it just now? What's the word you used? Yes. How women, yeah, I think it was also like a commentary on sacrifice, yeah. Because I feel like women sacrifice a lot of themselves just to become people in society. Women sacrifice a lot of themselves. Right from when they are young, they serve their brothers, they serve their fathers, they are trained that they are going to serve their husbands. And when they become mothers, they carry a lot of burden from getting pregnant, which is very difficult. Getting pregnant, holding a baby for over 9 months, the pain of labor. I think there's a lot of sacrifice that women, there's a lot of sacrifices that women do in society that we don't necessarily often talk about. And I think when women give off those parts of themselves, it begs us to question how we respect them, how we regard them in society. And I think I was trying to really like call the reader to that part of my story where women sacrifice a lot of themselves, right? In societies, from the way they carry themselves to the way they become mothers. And if I don't know if you've noticed, but mothers also sacrifice a lot of themselves for their children. Some mothers could give up what will genuinely make them happy just to see that their children are succeeding in their lives. And I think that is one thing that we don't talk about. So two things, right? Number one, there are certain beauty standards that we sort of subject women to that it should not even exist to begin with. And I think that was one thing I was trying to like really shed the light on. Number two is to also talk about the sacrifice that women do for people in society, for the family, for their husbands, for their children, and even when they are mothers. I think it's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of pain that we generally don't talk about. And I think the story was trying to bring readers to sort of ask these questions and begin to respect women more in society, or begin to actually see how important they are in society.
Thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. Thank you so much, Mustafa. Does anyone have anything to say on this? Okay. So if you're raising your hands, I can't see if your hands are raised. Okay, so none. All right. So I like that writers, African writers, are sort of coming to the realization and the consciousness that we are not just, as much as we are writing for pleasure, we are writing to change narratives, to make people aware. And as an African writer, you're part of a great movement using literature to raise awareness and spark conversations around critical issues. Your stories explore complex themes such as relationship with older partners and same-sex relationship. What was it like for you to engage with these topics? Did you ever grapple with concerns about social acceptance while writing? I mean, in hindsight, which story did you find most challenging to write, and how did you navigate these complexities?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I've said this before that I think writers are like advocates. The only difference between us and actual activists is that we don't go on the street and hold placards and through protest. But our most one of our most powerful tool to sort of like call for activism is our words, our writing voice, and the books that we write, the kind of story that we tell, how we try to use our stories to shape narratives around social issues, and how people respond to those stories. And I think that's very important. So as a writer, an activist, and my writing voice is my biggest tool. Yes, I did find it difficult trying to write a particular story um in my collection, and I think the story that I found it difficult the most to write was at the Ministry of Happiness. Why? It's because number one, I was trying to create a world that does not exist, and that world have has rules that was sort of like similar to what happened in the real world. And that was difficult because it wasn't like a normal terrain for me. Trying to create a whole new world with a new set of rules where men do not exist and only women exist and only women get married to themselves and have kids by themselves. It was very difficult for me. So I remember that I kept writing and rewriting that story. And if you notice it, I think it's also the longest story in the collection itself. So what was it like for me to engage with these topics? I think it was eye-opening, right? Like I said, my mother was the first feminist that I know, right? So, and living with her, growing with her, learning so much from her, sort of opened me to a world where I wanted to write stories about women who are trying to emancipate themselves against the patriarchy in a misogynistic world, in a world that don't respect them, that don't value them, right? That was what it was for me, and I felt liberated when I was able to come up with these stories and with the ideas and how interconnected they are. It was like liberation for me. And right now, having this conversation and engaging in this discourse is sort of like a dream come true, because it means that what I set out to do with the stories are actually happening if these questions are being asked about the stories. Did I ever grapple with concerns about societal acceptance while writing? Not really, because I felt like whoever is going to read my stories are either going to be offended by them or not. And I have had people tell me that, oh, my male characters are flat, and I sort of sidelined them. Some people also told me that my main characters were were not written with respect, and I thought my story sort of like valued the women characters more. And like in my head, I was like, that's the plan, that's the idea. The idea is not to respect. It's not to write a story. It's not to write stories like men generally have it soft in the society. The idea, rather, is to sort of shed light on women who are struggling to fight against the patriarchy that men created and are willing in doing that. That was the idea that I was trying to do. So I wasn't writing to appeal to anyone. I was actually writing to sort of like get a reaction from people. So read this book and your reaction is that, oh, I like what he's writing and I like the angle that he's coming from, fine. If you read it and you feel offended, fine. As long as it's sort of like stir something in your mind or in your heart, I'm okay with that, because that was the idea, to stir something in people's mind. Yeah, I think that's my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you very much. So you mentioned that the story which you battle with a lot with us, the Ministry of Happiness, and I'm just realizing now that there is no single male character in that story, and I believe that's how good you were to an extent. I did not notice that you deliberately did not include the male character.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. I read it as though, oh, he did not include the father, but then I just realized it was a conscious attempt to not include the male character. Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone has anything to say to this thing before we proceed. So there's none, and I'll go to the next question. The story often weave together characters from earlier tales, like those who went for therapy. I believe everyone had noticed it at some point. Those who read realized that the last three stories brought characters from the other stories and made it look as though it was connected in a way. So, and there was a time where most of these women who suffered things came for therapy, and I think they met at some point in a hospital, stuff like that. Now, given the stigma around therapy in Nigeria, I think one time we had a conversation about therapy in Nigeria, and it's on our podcast channel. We talked about how Nigerians do not really believe therapy is like a solution for some mental health cases, etc., etc. But now, given the stigma around therapy in Nigeria, was this a deliberate nod to the importance of seeking help and professional support? What role does therapy play in this character's journey? And were you hoping to challenge prevailing perceptions around mental health support? Because at some point, you made it clear that even the therapist had some issues too going on. I don't want to say she had square. She had some things going on in her head too as well. So it was clear. I just want to know whether were you hoping to challenge prevailing perceptions around mental health support? Just throw more light on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so the last three stories were written at a time where I was also going through some things with my mental health. So I was seeing a therapist. To be frank, I was seeing a therapist during those periods, and that was why I was able to capture the essence of therapeutic help and what it means to see a therapist and what it represents. And it was not intentional to sort of shed light on mental health in Nigeria. It wasn't not intentional at all. But it's sort of at the end of the story, I realized that what I had done was important, right? Not just for me, but also for my characters. Because I feel like most of my characters that sort of reoccurred in those stories have undergone like some form of traumatic event in their lives in those stories. And I feel like it only makes sense for them it sort of brings their stories to a close in the sense that they sort of seek professional help in a way that sort of help them make sense or make peace with what has happened to them in their lives. I remember that there was a particular time I really felt sad for one of my characters, and I think that was it Nene? I don't remember her name exactly, but I think it's the one in Safety Peace and Good Omens, because she had been having several miscarriages like for 7 years, and I felt like that kind of person needs to actually go to a therapy or needs to see a therapist so that in real life that's like a major traumatic event to be miscarrying babies every year, every single year for 7 years should be something. It's not something that any woman will go through or any person rather will go through and will not necessarily have to make peace with that sort of events, right? But then secondly, what I was trying to do at the end of the book was it's called a character ensemble in writing. So it's a situation where you sort of like create an event where all your characters come together in one scene and they sort of like interact with themselves. But this way, it wasn't a scene, rather, it was more like a place, right? That was the therapist itself. So the therapy center becomes a place where all the characters who have undergone major traumatic events come to seek help and sort of like brings their story to a full circle moment and then sort of gives it a better ending. So that was the idea behind that chapter. But no, I wasn't intentionally trying to write about mental health, but at the end of the story, it sort of like came up and it became very, very relevant in the entirety of the story, that mental health support is very important, and that even your therapist who may be trying to help you could also be going through some certain form of traumatic events themselves. Some therapists may even become therapists because of their personal traumatic lives. You really don't know what's going on with anybody in society, but then it was not intentionally I wasn't intentionally trying to shed light on mental health support, but then I like that it sort of like brings, even if it's a little, it sort of like brings like some form of discourse or some form of like I don't know how to put the word, but I like that it's making you to ask this kind of question regarding those stories.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you so much. I don't even know who has anything to add to this or a question to ask anybody, a thought to share on the book, anything. Okay. I think we've come to the end of the official question. So I'm going to just throw a quick fire questions at Mustapha now. I'm sure you probably didn't expect this, but all right. So here goes. Mustapha, kindly list your 3 favorite novels. 3 favorite.
My 3 favorite novels. Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Americana by the same author. You said 3, right?
Yes, 3.
This is a tough one. And Beauty and Sadness by Yasunari Kawabata.
You seem to like stories that wreck people. All right. Next question. Would you rather live rich in Nigeria or middle class in a poor country?
Would I rather live rich in Nigeria or middle class in a first world country? Sorry?
Yes, question. Yes, that's the question.
Like middle class in a first world country.
Yeah, that's a developed country.
Yeah, I think I would pick middle class in a first world country.
So you know rather live rich in Abuja?
No. Because even then, there are certain things that are still beyond your reach. Because so many things are not working in Nigeria, right? Even if you are rich, there are certain things that. I mean, look at Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's son dying in a hospital in Lagos. I mean, she's rich, and that happened to her. It can happen to anybody.
It's true. We should be advocating for patriotism in this country. This podcast goes after I didn't even mention my name before we started. So it's all right. Small weddings or big wedding? Would you rather have a small wedding or a big wedding?
A small wedding.
Oh, okay. Favorite meal?
I like beans. Any form of beans. Beans porridge, beans with yam, beans with potato, beans with dodo, beans with bread. Any form of beans.
If you have fans, as you mentioned beans, I'm saying thumbs up, right? I don't really like beans, but it's fine. It's all right. Now, last question. Your favorite song artist?
My favorite
song artist?
Lana Del Rey.
Oh, okay. I think you like things that wreck you. Thank you very much. I was shooting for 45 minutes, but I'm glad at least we finished before then. This is 9:37. I don't know if anyone has anything to say. Anyone? Oh yeah, by the way, while we're in the meeting, Timile joined us. Guys, I'd like you all to welcome Timile. She's one of the resource persons for Wheat Sprouts. Yeah, she's the one I've been communicating with for I almost said all these years, for all these months. So Timile, would you like to say hi to us?
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for engaging with our title and thank you for having us tonight.
All right, thank you, Timile. It's good to have you. Good night, everyone. Good night, Timile. Good night, Mustapha. Good night, everyone.
Don't forget to hit the follow button and tap on the notification icon to stay updated. That's all for today's episode. To join our book club or stay updated on future discussions, follow us on Instagram and X at Jollof Book Club, Jollof with a double F. And thank you so much for listening.